The movie kicks off with a hilariously disastrous timing. The school decides to host its very first sex education class right on the Valentine's Day. The moment the bell rings, the schoolyard erupts into absolute chaos. Students are buzzing with wild excitement, shouting, "Sex ed was today! Did you? You did, didn't you?" Enter our protagonist, a dad named Nick. Hearing the chatter, he immediately thinks of his daughter and gets a sinking feeling that something is terribly wrong. Sure enough, the second he spots his daughter Liza, she drops a bomb on him, asking exactly how she came into this world. Nick dodges the question, quickly whisking her away from the chaotic scene. But little does he know, Liza isn't letting this go. Before they even step through their front door, the interrogation resumes. Liza points out, "Sammy Boyd's sister said he was an accident. Explain how Sammy was an accident." Nick fumbles, trying to explain the unexplainable. "It's complicated," he stammers. "Sammy's dad is like a banana peel. The accident was that Sammy's mom got pregnant." Undeterred, Liza presses on. "If they didn't want a baby, why did they have sex?" Caught off guard, Nick admits it's a great question, suggesting they had sex on purpose. Liza immediately counters, "Then how was he an accident?" Nick completely crashes and burns, struggling to explain that they didn't mean to make a baby, ironically getting himself right into the trap he was trying to avoid. Liza is totally skeptical. Since her parents are already divorced, she's dealing with her own insecurities, terrified that she might have been an accident too. Once inside the house, she relentlessly badgers her dad to tell her his epic love story. Worn down by her stubbornness, Nick finally caves. But there's a catch. He decides to use aliases for his 3 major past girlfriends. Liza has to listen to the whole story and guess which one of them is actually her mother. Taking a deep breath, Nick says, "I'm ready." And the flashback begins. Cut to 1992. Fresh-faced Nick has just graduated from college. He's got his college sweetheart Emily by his side, and he harbors a massive, bordering on delusional dream of becoming the President of the United States. Emily thinks his life plan is incredibly exaggerated, but Nick is dead set on moving to New York to join Bill Clinton's presidential campaign team. Heartbroken but supportive, Emily has no choice but to agree. Meanwhile, Nick's college roommate is happily stirring the pot. He warns Nick about New York girls, claiming they are undeniably hot and totally down for casual flings. To ease Emily's mounting anxiety, Nick swears he'll stay faithful and stick to their life plan. His roommate jokes, "You'd risk leaving Emily here with me? I've always had a thing for her, and I have absolutely zero scruples." Despite the red flags, Nick doesn't back down. On the day he leaves, Emily hands him a mysterious package. It's meant for her old friend in New York, a woman named Summer, and Emily insists Nick deliver it personally. Armed with ambition, Nick arrives in the Big Apple and joins a high-profile political consulting firm. But reality hits him like a freight train. Despite his Ivy League pedigree, his boss immediately knocks him down a peg, assigning him to be the office coffee boy. "At some point in our lives, we all get coffee," his boss barks. "Your time's now." As the campaign enters its most cutthroat phase, Nick is stuck doing humiliating, trivial chores, making him the laughingstock of the office. The only person who doesn't join in on the cruel jokes is the copy girl, April. As 2 rookies at the bottom of the food chain, they quickly bond. Nick asks why she supports Clinton, and April cynically admits she's only in it for the paycheck. She calls all politicians hypocrites, a statement that deeply offends the idealistic Nick. He fiercely defends Clinton, but April drops a mic drop line, saying she only trusts the silence of politicians before they speak. Right on cue, a massive political scandal about Clinton breaks on the office TV. April gives a smug, "I told you so" look, leaving Nick utterly defeated. Desperate for comfort, he calls Emily, but the distance has already taken its toll. Instead of their usual warmth, they exchange hollow, "I miss yous." Before hanging up, Emily reminds him to deliver the package to Summer. Fueled by curiosity and egged on by a coworker, Nick crosses a line. He opens Emily's package. Inside is a diary detailing Emily and Summer's sweet, romantic past. Nick realizes Emily is trying to officially close that chapter of her life. The next day, Nick arrives at Summer's apartment, expecting to see her. But the door is opened by an eccentric man in his 60s. This is Hampton, a famous writer, professor, and, plot twist, Summer's boyfriend. Hampton warmly invites him in for a drink. Nick ends up drinking way too much and passes out on their couch. When he finally wakes up, he's greeted by a stunningly beautiful woman. This is Summer. Her undeniable charm instantly captivates him. When Nick hands her the diary, their fingers brush, and she immediately figures out he snooped. Surprisingly, she's not mad. She playfully tosses it back to him, telling him to keep it for when he's lonely, claiming she has the whole thing memorized anyway. Before Nick leaves, Summer chases him down the hall and abruptly kisses him, claiming Hampton encourages her to cultivate her curiosity. This encounter severely rattles Nick, though he tries to convince himself he still loves Emily. Feeling utterly unappreciated at work, he decides to throw in the towel, move back home, and marry his college sweetheart. But fate intervenes. His boss suddenly tosses him a seemingly impossible task: securing major sponsorships. It's a hot potato project no one wants to touch. Nick rises to the occasion. Flexing his actual skills, he lands a massive account, shocking the entire firm and finally earning everyone's respect. To celebrate, he heads to a store to buy a $20 pack of cigarettes, running into April, who is buying a $30 pack. They strike up a classic banter-filled debate about which is the better deal, betting $10 on whose cigarette will burn the longest. Standing on the busy New York streets, they connect. April reveals it's her birthday and her terrible boyfriend just stood her up. Nick loses the bet but invites her to his victory party. Later that night, fueled by liquid courage, Nick confesses he's bought a ring for Emily, who is visiting the next day. Terrified of messing up the proposal, he asks April to practice with him. When Nick gives a lackluster attempt, April challenges him, asking, "Why should I marry you anyway?" Nick stares at her and delivers a beautifully raw, heartfelt speech. "I want to marry you because you're the first person I want to look at when I wake up, and the only one I want to kiss goodnight. When you love someone as much as I love you, getting married is the only thing left to do." The chemistry is palpable, and a visibly moved April softly replies, "Definitely." To cut the romantic tension, Nick walks April home. Inside her apartment, he notices multiple copies of the book Jane Eyre. April reveals a tragic backstory. Her father gave her a special edition with a handwritten note inside for her 13th birthday, but he died in a car crash that same year. Her mom accidentally sold the book, and now April buys every secondhand copy she finds, hoping to miraculously track down her dad's note. Seeing her vulnerable side, Nick urges her to dump her toxic boyfriend. Caught in the moment, they kiss. But Nick panics, feeling guilty about Emily, and abruptly flees. The next day, Nick is a nervous wreck. He meets up with Emily, drops to one knee, and delivers the exact proposal he practiced. But in a massive plot twist, Emily rejects him. She tearfully confesses she cheated on him with his roommate, Jack. Nick is absolutely devastated. Emily insists they need to break up because holding on to the relationship would only hold him back from his dreams. Back in the present, Liza is crushed by this part of the story. With Emily seemingly out of the picture, she asks if her mom is April or Summer. Nick continues. As his personal life hits rock bottom, his career skyrockets. His candidate hits #1 in the polls, but Nick is too heartbroken to care. April becomes his absolute rock, keeping him sane. Eventually, she takes his advice, dumps her boyfriend, and goes backpacking across the globe, keeping in touch via letters. Meanwhile, Nick's career peaks when Summer's older boyfriend, Hampton, invites him to an elite book launch. Hampton actually recommends Summer to be Nick's new speechwriter. Her first draft is brilliant and boldly flirty. They start dating, sharing a whirlwind romance. But tragedy strikes when Hampton is hospitalized. On his deathbed, he asks Summer for one last favor, knowing she holds a massive secret about Clinton that she's been hiding to protect Nick's career. Right around this time, April returns from her travels. She catches up with Nick, ready to confess her feelings, but her heart shatters when she spots Nick buying another diamond ring. Realizing he is deeply in love with someone else, she hides her disappointment, hugs him, and decides to let him go. Nick, telling this to his daughter, finally realizes in hindsight that he completely missed his window with April. And then comes the betrayal. Nick discovers Summer has just published the devastating Clinton scandal. She coldly chose her journalistic career over their relationship. In one swift stroke, the candidate drops out, the firm dissolves, and Nick loses both his job and his girlfriend. Hitting rock bottom, Nick tracks down April, who is now working at a bookstore and prepping for grad school. Nick's entire worldview has shifted. He realizes he spent years chasing the wrong things, while his true love was right in front of him. But the timing is terrible. April is casually dating someone new. Nick tries to keep his distance, but April surprises him on his birthday. Later that night, outside her apartment, Nick finally lays his cards on the table and confesses his love. But April is defensive. She thinks it's just a fleeting emotional reaction and tells him to get his life together. Sometime later, by sheer miraculous luck, Nick spots a copy of Jane Eyre in a second-hand shop. He opens it, and there it is, the handwritten note from April's father. He rushes to her apartment to return it and apologize, but his heart drops when he sees her new boyfriend living there. Defeated, he walks away with the book. Later, he runs into a now-pregnant Summer, who has just gone through a breakup. Listening to this, Liza immediately assumes Summer is her mom, making her an affair baby, and meaning Nick isn't her biological dad. She is furious, but here comes the final twist. The next day, Nick takes Liza to see her mom for their custody handoff. The door opens, and it's Emily. Liza is stunned. She is their biological daughter. Nick explains that years later, he and Emily unexpectedly reconnected, got married, and had Liza. Even though it ultimately ended in divorce, they remain great friends. Liza thinks the story is incredibly sad, but Nick smiles and tells her she has it all wrong. She is the happy ending. Inspired by recounting his past, Nick finally makes a move. He grabs the Jane Eyre book and drives straight to Ella House. Ella hasn't seriously dated anyone in years, always feeling like a piece of her heart was missing. When Nick hands her the long-lost book with her father's note, she breaks down in tears. She asks why he kept it all these years. Nick looks at her and admits it was the only piece of her he had left. That raw confession melts her walls completely. They finally embrace, proving that true love isn't something you force. It finds you exactly when the time is right.